Hey everyone, it's Tony here. So, the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs and what it means for that $2,000 stimulus check, or as the president keeps calling it, the $2,000 dividend payment. This is causing massive confusion right now. I've gotten so many questions about this in the comments, and I know you're worried about whether this money is actually going to happen. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what's going on with this Supreme Court ruling, what it means for the tariff revenue that's supposed to fund these checks, and most importantly, whether you should actually expect to see $2,000 in your bank account or if this is all just political talk. I've been covering government benefits and financial relief for over years, helping millions of families navigate assistance programs, and I'm going to give you the real story here. No hype, no clickbait. Just the truth about what's happening and what you need to know. Also, go into the comments section and tell me from which state or city you are watching this video. And the channel membership is enabled. Now, if you want to, ahead of every update and new benefits, then join the Retirees Benefits membership. Alright, so let's start with the basics because this whole thing is tied to tariffs. The president has been very clear that this $2,000 payment would be funded by tariff revenue. Every time he talks about tariffs, he says we've brought in hundreds of billions of dollars and we're expected to bring in trillions over the next decade. And you know what? The numbers actually back that up. Projections show somewhere between $3 and $4 trillion in tariff revenue over the next 10 years. As of right now, at the end of 2025, we've already collected about $261 billion in tariff revenue just this year alone. That's a lot of money, right? But here's where it gets tricky. According to projections, sending out this $2,000 dividend payment to a huge percentage of the population would cost somewhere between $272 billion on the very low end and over $600 billion on the high end. And that's just for one payment. Now, we don't know the exact cost because we don't have the parameters yet. We don't know the income thresholds. We don't know exactly who qualifies. Back in mid-November, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentioned something about incomes under $100,000. But honestly, I think the actual threshold is going to be significantly lower than that to make the math work. So basically, even with the $261 billion we've collected this year, we're looking at paying out at a minimum all of that money, plus potentially hundreds of billions more. That's the financial reality we're dealing with. Now, here's what everyone's waiting for: the Supreme Court ruling on these emergency tariffs. And I need to be upfront with you. As I'm recording this video, we have not received the Supreme Court's decision yet. It could literally come out any day, any hour, any minute. It might even drop 5 minutes after I post this video. The big concern that everyone has is this: what if the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs? What if they say these tariffs are not lawful and all that money needs to be paid back? A lot of people are worried that would kill the $2,000 dividend completely, that without the tariff revenue, there's no way to fund these checks. And I get why people are scared about that. It makes sense, right? If your funding source disappears, the program disappears. But here's what you need to understand, and this is really important. The administration has multiple other ways to bring in this revenue even if the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs. They have all these other legal avenues to basically reinstate duties on imports coming into the country. It might not be called an emergency tariff anymore, but they can recreate essentially the same revenue stream through other mechanisms. These would be different types of duties, different legal classifications, but the effect would be the same: collecting money on imports and generating revenue for the Treasury. So here's my point. Whether the tariffs stay in place or whether the Supreme Court strikes them down, the consensus among people who understand this stuff is that the administration has other options. They can find ways to recreate that income stream. Now, when we finally get this Supreme Court announcement, and it's coming any day now, here's what I think is going to happen. If the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs, you're immediately going to see headlines and talking heads saying, "That's it! There goes the $2,000 dividend." It's definitely not happening now. All the revenue is gone, and the president's big plan is dead. There's probably going to be a few hours, or maybe a couple of days, where everyone is convinced it's over. Social media is going to explode, with people saying we're definitely not getting these checks. And I get why people are scared about that. It makes sense, right? If your funding source disappears, the program disappears. But here's what you need to understand, and this is really important. the administration has multiple other ways to bring in this revenue, even if the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs. They have all these other legal avenues to basically reinstate duties on imports coming into the country. It might not be called an emergency tariff anymore, but they can recreate essentially the same revenue stream through other mechanisms. These would be different types of duties, different legal classifications, but the effect would be the same, collecting money on imports and generating revenue for the Treasury. So here's my point. Whether the tariffs stay in place or whether the Supreme Court strikes them down, the consensus among people who understand this stuff is that the administration has other options. They can find ways to recreate that income stream. Now, when we finally get this Supreme Court announcement, and it's coming any day now, here's what I think is going to happen. If the Supreme Court strikes down the tariffs, you're immediately going to see headlines and talking heads saying, "That's it! There goes the $2,000 dividend?" It's definitely not happening now. All the revenue is gone, and the president's big plan is dead. There's probably going to be a few hours or maybe a couple of days where everyone is convinced it's over. Social media is going to explode with people saying we're definitely not getting these checks. But, and this is a big but, the administration is going to do everything in their power to reinstate those duties as quickly as possible. They're going to essentially defy the Supreme Court by finding alternative legal pathways. They're going to say, okay, you told us we can't do it this way, so we're going to do it a different way. They're not going to call them tariffs at that point. They'll call them something else. But it's going to be literally the same thing. A revenue-generating activity, putting duties on imports just like the tariffs are doing right now. Now, I want to give you some real talk here because I don't want you making financial decisions based on money that might not come. Do I know for sure if this $2,000 payment is going to happen? No, I have no idea. Nobody really knows except maybe the people at the very top of the administration. The president continues to say it's going to happen. He's very convinced. He's still selling it hard that these payments are coming. Multiple people within the administration have said it's doable, and they're committed to making it happen. But there are also plenty of economists and financial experts saying the numbers don't support a $2,000 payment to a huge percentage of the population, at least not right now, not all at once. Here's something interesting that could make this actually work. What if they plan to pay this over 10 years instead of all at once? Think about it. Over a 10-year period, that $3 to $4 trillion in projected tariff revenue would easily cover these payments. We're talking about a 10 to 20% profit share of all tariffs brought in. That's totally doable. Over a 1-year period? You're right. The tariffs don't bring in enough money to fund $2,000 for everyone. But over 10 years? The math actually works out pretty well, depending on who qualifies and what the income thresholds are, so it really depends on how you look at it and what time frame they're using. Let's talk about who would actually get this money if it happens. And again, this is based on speculation and hints from the administration because we don't have official parameters yet. Treasury Secretary Bessent mentioned incomes under $100,000, but I personally think it's going to be lower than that. My guess? They're probably looking at something more like single filers making under $50,000 to $75,000, getting the full amount, with phase-outs for higher incomes. Families would probably have higher thresholds, maybe $100,000 to $150,000 for married couples. This would likely include people on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and veterans benefits. Those are populations the administration has specifically mentioned wanting to help. Unemployed workers and people struggling with the cost of living would also likely be included. The whole point of this dividend is to help people dealing with inflation and high costs. But again, these are educated guesses. We don't have official eligibility requirements yet. Look, when this Supreme Court ruling drops, it's going to be a fireworks display no matter what happens. The internet is going to go crazy. News outlets are going to have breaking news alerts. Everyone's going to have an opinion. If the tariffs are upheld, people will say, "See! The checks are definitely coming now." If the tariffs are struck down, people will say, "That's it! No way we're getting that money now." But here's what I'm telling you. Don't jump to conclusions either way. The situation is way more complicated than a simple yes or no Supreme Court decision. The administration is committed to this, or at least they're saying they are. And if one avenue gets blocked, they're going to find another one. That's just how politics works. I know you're tired of waiting. I know you need answers. I know you're trying to figure out your budget and plan your finances, and this uncertainty is frustrating. The truth is, we're all in this waiting game together. Even policy experts and people close to the administration don't have all the answers yet. What I can tell you is this. The president has mentioned this dividend payment in multiple speeches. He's committed to it publicly. Multiple administration officials have confirmed they're working on it. That doesn't guarantee it's going to happen, but it does mean it's being taken seriously at high levels. So what should you do while we wait for more information? First, don't count on this money for immediate expenses. I hate to say it, but you cannot budget based on a payment that hasn't been approved, authorized, or distributed. If it happens, great. Treat it as a bonus. But don't hold off on paying bills or making necessary purchases waiting for money that might not come. Second, make sure your information is updated with the IRS. If these payments do happen, they'll likely use the same system as previous stimulus checks. That means they need your current address, direct deposit information, and recent tax return on file. Third, focus on resources available right now. Don't wait for a potential stimulus check when there are programs that can help you today. SNAP benefits, LE-HEAP for utility assistance, rental help, food banks. These programs exist and they're available now. Fourth, stay informed but don't obsess over every headline. I'm going to be watching this situation closely and I'll update you the moment we have concrete information. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss those updates. Look, I'm going to keep watching this Supreme Court situation every single day. When that ruling comes out, I'll break it down for you immediately. When we get information about eligibility, timelines, or applications, I'll be here explaining exactly what you need to do. I'm also going to make a compilation video at some point of all the president's statements about this dividend so you can hear directly from him what's been promised. Because I think it's important for you to see the full picture. In the meantime, I've got tons of other videos about assistance programs, benefit updates, and financial help that's available right now. Check the links in the description below. Here's the bottom line. We don't know if this $2,000 dividend is going to happen. The president says it will. The administration says they're working on it. But we need to see actual legislation, actual timelines, and actual eligibility requirements before we can count on anything. The Supreme Court ruling on tariffs is a big deal, but it's not the end of the story either way. If the tariffs get struck down, the administration will find other ways to generate that revenue. If the tariffs are upheld, we'll be one step closer to potentially seeing these payments. Only time will tell. And believe me, I say that all the time because it's true. You deserve to know what's really going on without the hype and without the fear-mongering. You deserve honest information so you can make informed decisions for your family. Whatever happens with this ruling and these payments, I'm here to help you navigate it. I'm here to advocate for you, to represent you, and to make sure you have the information you need. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening with the Supreme Court ruling and the stimulus checks, please give it a thumbs up. Share it with anyone else who's confused about all these headlines. Drop your questions in the comments below. I read every single one and I'll answer what I can. And please, if you're new here, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. I'm posting updates constantly about your money, your benefits, Social Security, assistance programs. Anything you can grab or take advantage of, I'm covering it. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays, if I can still say that. We're in mid-December as I'm filming this. Stay tuned. I've got your back. I'll see you in the next video.